All right, there's a big development coming in. Iran is preparing to announce its new supreme leader. According to Iranian media, a successor to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has already been chosen. This decision has been made by Iran's Assembly of Experts, the powerful body of clerics responsible for selecting the country's supreme leader. Ahmad Al-Malhoda, the member of the assembly, has reportedly said that the choice has been finalized and the name will be announced publicly soon. This move comes just days after Khamenei was killed in the early phase of the current war. All right, let's quickly take this across to our guests joining us. With us from outside of the studio are Ashok Sajanar, former diplomat. We also have Colonel Retired Dr. Rafael George Buchik Chen, Senior Researcher at the Begin Sadat Institute of Strategic Studies, Bar-Ilan University. Commander V.K. Jetli is with us, ex-Navy veteran. Let me start with you first. Ashok Sajanar, very important move coming in over here where the successor has reportedly been chosen. But the big question now is what is US's stance going to be? Remember, Trump a few days ago spoke about the regime, everyone being killed, and now the successors also being killed. What will US's approach here be is very, very important because, you know, ultimately, if they have to resolve this diplomatically, they will have to speak to someone in the government.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Madhav, for having me on the show. You know, we did hear some reports earlier after the conflict started and after Ali Khamenei was killed, that his son Mujtaba Khamenei had been chosen, had been selected, and he was the one who was to succeed his father. Of course, there were some question marks against his name also because he was not that high as far as, you know, the hierarchy of the Islamic clerics was concerned. He was only an Hujjatul Islam, and while you know, above him, there is the rank of the Ayatollahs, which Khamenei was, and there are very many Ayatollahs also in Iran. So that was supposed to be one particular issue, one particular problem with him. The other was that, you know, the Islamic Republic in 1979 had come while, you know, campaigning against the dynastic rule of Shah Reza Pahlavi, that after him, you know, his son would come. And here also, if it is a dynastic rule that is going on, then that would be found somewhat unpalatable as far as the people are concerned. But that having been said, I think we'll really have to wait and see who is the new appointee who has been selected by the 88-member Assembly of Experts. But from the United States, from both Donald Trump as well as Benjamin Netanyahu, it has been said, you know, Donald Trump has said that, you know, two tiers of the leadership as far as Iranian spiritual and military leadership, that they have been annihilated by the Americans and the Israelis. And if the next one comes, you know, whoever is the supreme leader, then he also will be a target of attack. So definitely this is something that is going to happen, and how the Iranians will be able to protect whoever is appointed, because the position carries great both political and spiritual significance.
Let me bring in some of our other panelists as well. Colonel Rafael George, the question that is on many people's minds is this, that how long is this fighting going to continue? Trump seems to have dug in his heels. His response to the Iranian president's statement that, look here, we're not going to attack any neighbors, is that I'm going to continue attacking Iran. That's pretty much the statement, if I'm going to sum it up in one line, is concerned. So what are we looking at as a possible resolution of this? Has US now gone so far ahead that it will be very difficult for them to pull back unless there is a complete regime change? And if there is a regime change, how are they going to effect it without a ground invasion? Many questions that are now opened up.
Well, to say the least, and the war is still ongoing, and there is no specific time frame to expect it to end. At the moment, the progress, according to the Israeli and the U.S. perceptions, is the situation is going very good according to the plan, and even getting more results than expected. And this is an encouraging situation. Apparently, the goal of achieving a regime change is still the ultimate goal. However, we cannot assume right now that it will be possible just by using attack from outside. I mean, air attacks and missiles attacks and so on. And there need to be another stage to arrive, like engaging the public to go out to the streets and then put pressure on the regime. This is not yet the case. However, there is another round of pressure, either from the military aspect and also from the subversion activities already engaged by the US and Israel to engage some people, the public, and also the Kurds, of course, to assist the process of bringing down the regime.
All right, please stay with us. I'm going to request all our panelists to stay with us because there's a very, very significant development that has happened now. We've been speaking about this, but today is when it's actually happened. With a war in West Asia now striking at the heart of Iran's civilian infrastructure. This is, of course, the visuals of oil depots that are, in fact, burning. And according to multiple reports tonight, we're seeing oil depots as well as desalination plants across the region that have been targeted. Now, these are not traditional military targets. They are infrastructure that supports everyday life for millions of people beyond, of course, the military. Even the civilian population, something basic such as water is obviously going to be required. Now, Iranian media sources say that attacks are aimed at crippling country's economy and putting pressure on its civilian population. The strikes have also raised major environmental concerns because fires at oil depots have sent thick smoke into the sky over Tehran, where air pollution levels are already extremely high, and the impact is now spreading beyond Iran. The Kuwait news agency has reported that a desalination plant in Bahrain has been damaged after an Iranian drone attack. Desalination plants are critical in the Gulf region. They produce drinking water for millions of people. Let me quickly take this across to Commander V.K. Jetli. Commander V.K. Jetli, very, very significant that this war is entering in this sort of a phase. If you look at, for instance, Operation Sindoor, there were only military targets that were taken out. But this is going to affect the entire civilian population. And who knows what the consequences of this will be. What this will lead to in terms of unrest, in terms of, the civilian population is concerned. There's a huge impact if this sort of attack continues.
See, this attack on Bahrain first, on their desalination plant by the Iran. Now, Iran, this present regime, they had unleashed the reign of terror since 1979. Today happens to be the International Women's Year. On this day, I remember how the ladies used to work and used to have full freedom in the pre-1979 era. Now, this new supreme leader also, he belongs to exactly the same madrasa-educated fanatic. Now, he is not going to change. Now, the only situation and the only solution which is left for Iran is complete regime change by the moderates. Only they can bring some solace to the Iranian normal public. Iran is suffering since 1979. Only the people who are fanatic, they are happy because of their Sharia laws or whatever it is. The majority of the people who are moderates, they have been executed in thousands and thousands during these times. So I think there's a need. On this International Women's Day, we pledge that we support the women of Iran who have been put under burqa. And any lady who tried to remove the burqa, their hair were cut. They were put into the jails, stepped on the roads. The way atrocities were done on them, I think people are literally fed up with this current regime. They need to be thrown. That's the only solution for them.
Right. And in fact, let me bring in Ashok Sajaner on that. Ashok Sajaner, what's the impact that we're looking at of this kind of a war? Because, President Trump himself said 4 to 5 weeks, and it's just been a little over a week in that sense. But the point is that you have the possibility of entire civilian populations getting enraged with this kind of fighting. If this is the level of attacks taking place already in Iran, for instance, the attack on a school has become hugely controversial. And now if you start hitting key infrastructure such as this, where will the people go?
No, absolutely. You're very right. And, as far as Iran is concerned, we know that it has been under sanction for many, many decades. So, there is a certain, resilience as far as that population is concerned. But you know what you mentioned about Bahrain and, some of the other places, those have by and large been peaceful. They have been prosperous. They have been developing. And for something as basic as water, many of these countries, to the tune of 90%, to the tune of 80%, or definitely more than 75%, they depend upon desalination of water which they use for their normal day-to-day consumption. So, if that is hit, that is going to have a huge impact. If you permit, Madhav, I think we really need to see this whole thing in totality, because of course Iran is suffering, Iran is being attacked. These regional Gulf states are suffering because they are being attacked by Iran. Of course, Pezeshkian has said yesterday, he apologized and he says we are not going to attack them if no attacks come to us from those countries. Israel is suffering, this whole region is suffering, but the whole world is suffering also along with this, because the Strait of Hormuz has been choked, that has been closed. There are 150 tankers and vessels in the Persian Gulf. They are not allowed to move because, that choke point of Strait of Hormuz is just about 30 kilometers. So they can't go, and Iran has threatened that anyone that wants to come in, we are going to hit them. So the world over,
right?
India, Japan, China, Russia, South Korea, all these places, there is no energy, oil or gas that is coming. Communications or many airports have been hit. Of course, slowly I've seen since the morning today, there are a few flights trickling out from there. But otherwise, hundreds of thousands of people have not been able to travel.
Absolutely. And for India, where over 80 to 90 lakh Indians live and work in the Gulf region, it is hugely terrifying, certainly for all of them, to see this kind of fighting impacting on infrastructure and daily life. There's more breaking news coming in. The Israeli military stated that it had struck Tehran airport that was used to target, of course, transport, in fact, weapons to militants. And now Bahrain has temporarily closed its airspace following the latest strikes in the region. The national carrier Gulf Air has suspended several Middle East flight operations as a precaution. Airline authorities say services have been halted until further notice amidst the ongoing security alert. Gulf Air has issued a travel advisory, adding that flights will resume once Bahrain's airspace is cleared and authorities give the green light. All right, more breaking news coming in amidst the ongoing airspace closure in Qatar. Qatar Airways has issued a travel update. They say that a limited flight corridor has been approved, allowing only select Qatar Airways flights to land in Doha. Officials add that only passengers bound for Doha will be permitted on these flights, while full operations will resume once Qatar's airspace is completely reopened. And more breaking news coming in as far as airspace is concerned. Air India announcing additional flights to Europe and US amidst the ongoing situation in West Asia. The airline will operate 78 extra flights between March 10th and March 18th to boost capacity as travel options remain constrained. In fact, additional services are going to connect Delhi and Mumbai with key destinations including New York, London, Frankfurt, Paris, Amsterdam and Zurich, along with regional routes to Colombo as well. Let's quickly take this back across to our guests. Rafael, George, while important that air connectivity, which was hugely impeded in the last few days, is being restored, but how do you see this attack on oil infrastructure and the manner it's actually happening on ground impacting on this war?
Basically, the attack is a part of the second phase of the operation, namely targeting infrastructure facilities related to the military and to defense industries. This is basically what's going on starting last night, and it will be also manifested during strikes as of today. The US is also joining this effort in order to curtail the capabilities of Iran to rebuild and to produce more ammunitions and other devices related to the war. Actually, the effect seems to be very, very good, and therefore the Israeli will enhance the scope of strikes as of today. And the additional targets to be, of course, mentioned are related to the military efforts of Iran.
Please stay with us, sir, because there's some more breaking news coming in. Israel has released strike footage. In fact, it says that its air force has carried out a major wave of strikes in western and central Iran over the past day. According to Israel officials, more than 400 military infrastructure targets were hit, including ballistic missile launchers and weapons production sites. The strikes are part of Operation Roaring Lion, with Israel saying that the attacks are aimed at reducing threats and missile fire directed at its territory. All right, let's quickly bring Commander VK Jetli. What do you make of this footage that has just come out from Israel's side? They've, of course, said that these are targets that include military infrastructure. This includes ballistic missile launchers and weapons production sites. Now, both sides, of course, have a lot at stake. These missiles have caused huge amount of damage. And clearly from Iran, it is also going to be important if actually their key military infrastructure such as this is destroyed.
See, as per most of the reports, more than 50% stock of Iran has been totally demolished. Now, Israel is trying, wherever the production facilities are going on, simultaneous production is going on, even that should be damaged totally, so that Iran is crippled. Once Iran is crippled, as far as their missiles are concerned, drones are concerned, they will not be able to attack, or their numbers of attacks will reduce drastically. So it will become much easier for them to push their troops on the ground if that situation arises. And the second thing is, economically also they are trying to hit them. Like yesterday, they destroyed their 7 of top refineries, which constitute almost 40 to 50% of their refining capacity. 7 of them. And 30 storage tanks, they were destroyed. Now, totally, the idea is to cripple Iran at the earliest so that they are forced to surrender.
Well, at the moment, Iran is fighting back. How long will this continue? Of course, remains a very important question. And of course, as far as the regime itself is concerned, if there is a new leader, what then are the implications of that? We leave it there for the moment. Commander VK Jetli, Ashok Sajanhar, Colonel retired Dr. Ralph George Buchnik Chen. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening.